Olá, tudo bem? Aqui é o Jorge, mais um episódio de Case of Distrust. Olha aí, voltou, né? A gente fez o Case of Distrust veio com a pausa do Hollow Knight, quando bateu no episódio 10. Aí fizemos 10 episódios de A Case of Distrust. Voltamos para o Hollow Knight, do episódio 11 até o 20. E agora, para acabar o A Case of Distrust, que inclusive por alguns planos que eu quero pro canal, ele vai ter 3 episódios no máximo. Pode até ter 2, mas a ideia é ter 3. E aqui naquele parágrafozinho, quando você sai do jogo e volta, ele te mostra. E eu não abro o jogo há muito tempo, né? Então, ó. In order to find Green's killer, I had to prove that somebody had the means, the motivation, and the opportunity for murder. Anyone connected to the case was a possible suspect. Então motivo, maneira e motivação, né? É isso que era o... E momento, que é a oportunidade. Então vamos lá, né? A gente, se eu não me engano, tava falando com ela, pois é, com a cantora. Mas eu não quero falar com ela no momento. Turn back to the room. Eu quero falar mesmo com algumas outras pessoas, tipo o barbershop não, mas o tennis bom onde eu tô, né? E se eu falar com... Será que a Mrs. Green tá lá? Porque tem um certo pensamento que a Mrs. Green... Eu não vou falar com o táxi não, que agora eu tô focado. The Green's apartment was a section, a gente já leu isso bastante, né? I came upon the greenhouse and knocked on the door. This time Mrs. Green opened it quickly. Miss Malone, she panted, with noticeable shock in her eyes. I'm just frightened about people knocking at my door, she said by way of explanation. After what happened to my husband, everything feels so cold. Oh, I'm blabbering. Please come inside. She led the way to 2 chairs and we sat down. She was more awake than the previous day, but her hair was a bit tousled. Essa palavra? And her S's hung in the air long enough to belie her lack of complete sobriety. Have you found anything about my husband's killer? She asked. I shook my head and replied that there was nothing definitive, caramba, just then. I said I would need to ask her some questions that might spark the investigation. She straightened in her chair and replied with, certainly. Eu não vou acusar ela no momento, né? Eu vou tentar... Deixa eu ver os statements. Eu vou perguntar pra ela sobre o Redstone Stable. Vai que, né? Porque o Connor Green mesmo tava pensando que era ele. Eu não acho que seja. Your husband suspected Redstone Stable of interfering with his business. She sobbed. I know the police told me the details this morning. That Connor had gotten a ladder, that he had begun bootlegging again, and that he thought a man named Redstone Stable was after him for it. It seemed they had told her everything. I turned the conversation to a different angle. Se a gente pudesse falar com a polícia, seria interessante ver se ela realmente ouviu isso deles, né? Vamos ver. Tiny Paul. Tiny Paul gave Green cash. I got next to nothing out of her with that. Okay. Do shipment, né? Green was killed with a .45. We talked for a while about that. I got nothing useful out of her. Caralho. Green died at midnight. No, Green's Oakland past is a lie. It seems your husband was from St. Louis, I put to her. She squirmed, but said nothing, so I pressed her. Mrs. Green, I'm investigating his death. You're right, she said. He had told me he was from out east, though he lied to everyone else. He claimed he had to flee from his past. I never asked the details, so that's all I know, and you're the first person I've told. He also had 2 train tickets to get there, I continued. He wanted to return? Oh, those tickets have no date printed on them. She paused, looked at me from underneath long lashes, and continued. He was thinking of going back there. I guess whatever trouble he had was blowing over. But I refused. I told him I wanted to stay in San Francisco. Whenever Connor and I quarreled, a sharp, weary inhale cut off her sentence. Well, he kept them around to brandish, to show me that he loved me and that he stayed here only for me. Caralho, poderoso. I nodded and we spoke about something else. Green was found close to the tin scroll now. Oh, bye. What were you doing last night? I asked. Her expression was surprised, but I told her, I just need to place everyone in their locations, Mrs. Green, to get a full picture of the evening. Of course, she said. Let's see, I was singing with the band. The show ending at about 10 o'clock. Lembre que eles foi morto perto da meia-noite. Then we went up into the billiard hall. Oh, it haunts me that Connor was so close when he was killed, she winced, but none of us heard anything with how loud we were and how sealed that building is. How late were you in the pool room? I asked. Until early in the morning, say 2 or 3? Contradict? Não acho que eu tenha alguma coisa pra contradizê-la, né? Pouquíssimas coisas, inclusive. Não tenho nada. Nobody through pool hall entrance last night. O Fred Grant falou. Eu nem lembro do Fred Grant. According to what the doorman had told Grant, nobody had come in or gone out of the billiards room around the time that Green had been murdered. Used to contradict. What does that have to do with it? With last night, evident. I was in pool room the whole night. Ela saiu no 2 ou 3. Eu não tenho nada que fale contra isso, né? No momento. Ok, eu vou falar disso do ser falso. Shipman says the letter is a forgery. The letter... Caraca, abriu um coisão grandão. The letter that your husband received had a small black hand on it. That hand, I explained, is a symbol of the notorious Black Hand Gang. Mrs. Green's eyes went wide. Yes, but, I continued, it was a fake. The Black Hand doesn't run this far west. So who wrote it then? She asked. I told her that I thought her husband had written the letter and that I thought his bootlegging scheme was a bust. He also had those tickets to St. Louis. I think his plan was to fake his death and use me as cover while running back home. She sighed. I don't know about his dealings, Malone. Olha, eu vou deixar ela por aqui. I nodded my thanks for her answers, then turned back to the room. Eu não vejo muito mais o que ver aqui na casa, né, em específico. Eu vou tentar ir pro Southern Coffee. Pra falar um pouquinho com o Frank. Eu tava pensando isso esses dias que eu ia voltar a gravar. Eu tive esse medo de que o Frank fosse quem matou. Isso seria horrível. Porque, pô, é o Frank, né? O nosso parça. E que porra é essa? A yellow newspaper was flopped on the counter. It was a sports section dated June 1st, 1887. It read, Browns continue dominant play ending May with a 21-2 record, after a Herculean 2 games thrown on the same day by pitcher Conway. Frankie was still behind the bar. Sat down on my knives for Frankie. He shook his head in disbelief as I finished the story. This is his own tape. Case, so you think I could go through with it? I don't know, Malone. These Deacon's rats sound dangerous. You sure you know what you're doing? O que eu quero, acho que a coisa mais importante é achar pessoas que tinham a oportunidade, ou seja, que estavam fora nessa hora, no horário da meia-noite aí. Desculpa se eu cortei uma partezinha que eu bati no meu tripé. Que tava na rua perto dessa meia-noite. Isso é difícil. Deixa eu dar uma lida aqui. I consider if Ella Smith, one of the lounge's backing singers, might know Paul's whereabouts, though I had yet to get any information from her because of her proximity to Gwen's death. She was also a suspect in the murder. Cara, é foda isso. Eu acho que aqui, então, não tem muita coisa. Ella Smith. Vou falar com ela. Mas Frankie... Então tá bom. Eu vou ir pro Redstone Stable, então. Às vezes eu consigo falar um pouco mais com ele, mesmo que eu tenha pouca percepção que seja ele. Não vejo por que seria, sabe? Então vamos lá. The Barber Shop, né? The small bell. Opa, o cara tá sentadinho. There was a man sitting on the barber chair, tapping his foot and staring at me. I didn't see stable anywhere. Ai, caralho. Deixa eu até tomar um copo d'água. Um copo não, um gole. Talk to him. Ai, caralho. He stared at me with a grin that extended to his eyes. He was wearing a barber's cape, which told me he was here for a haircut. I wondered why Stable had left this man mid-trim. I asked how he was doing. Swell, he answered. Yes, very swell indeed. Thank you, miss. His words came out as jovial as his expression, and they held a slight ineffable southern tint. A few more pleasantries returned equally verbose response with no meat to them. They piqued my interest. A stranger in Stable's barber chair with no sign of Stable around? Who are you? I asked with genuine curiosity. I am merely a mortal man enjoying my life at this very moment, he replied, looking me up and down, and there is much to enjoy. I heaved a sigh in response. Last night's headache hadn't fully disappeared, making me too tired to play any of his games. Eu não queria, não era esse sigh que eu queria, era tipo... Mas enfim, he frowned slightly. I am merely paying a compliment, he said. You modern girls get your stockings all knotted whenever someone calls you pretty. I apologized. I'm not trying to be crass. I need answers to some questions, and I'll be on my way. I'm looking for Stable, but he's not here. So, I paced the final 3 words. Who are you? My name is Ray Carter, regular jazz bassist at the Tin Spoon Lounge, a speakeasy in North Beach. It is my pleasure to meet you, miss. You worked at the Tin Spoon. That surprised me. Were you there last night? I asked. Until early this morning, he claimed. I won a bucket of change at the poker table. Just about everyone was saying that they never saw someone play cards so well. Sometimes you get lucky, I suppose, he winked. I wondered if he was at all related to this case. I was glad he was smiling, and that upbeat suspect eased any harsh questions. He saw me taking notes and asked, "And are you some sort of continental operative?" When I nodded, he let out a whistle and said, "A woman detective. Well, that is almost as swell a sight as black man in a white man's barber chair." Olha, com o Ray Carter, eu vou fechar esse 11º episódio, né, do Case of Distrust. Agora, nessa etapa final, a gente vai acabar o jogo. Já tá bem no finalzinho, né? Espero que você esteja gostando. Muito obrigado por assistir. E até a próxima. Um beijão.